Looking back is a source of inspiration rather than a sign of stagnation. If there is no progress, there must be decline, right? Yet, I'm sure we're all astutely aware of trend cycles across various forms of cultural expression. And one of my personal favorites can be seen through the hip hop music I grew up listening to. And that's because hip hop music isn't just inspired by jazz and soul, it's made up by recycling and reimagining snippets from those classic records. In fact, the art of music sampling is what inspired one of my most used strategic mantras said countless times throughout my content. Everything is a remix of the past. And I'll probably keep needing to say it until my face turns blue, but if you want to create something that has a lasting impact on today's CPG world, it needs to be a combination of new yet familiar. Do something too closely related to market leaders and consumers won't take notice, but do something too novel and they're confused. Within the CPG industry, most successful products do not arrive out of nowhere. They are remixes that recycle and reimagine existing or past snippets. And while I'd argue that remixing has always been an effective product strategy, there's maybe a kind of demand driver that has been strengthened because of recent historical events. So, during what I'd like to call the Goldilocks business era of the 2010s, especially in the latter part of the decade, many emerging CPG brands focused on disrupting and or completely reinventing entire product categories. It was this moment in time where it honestly felt like every well-established consumption behavior was being targeted by venture-backed technology for replacement. A great example of this phenomenon would have been personalized nutrition within the supplement industry. But ironically, when the Great Shutdown era did force drastic change to everyday life, traditional systems within the CPG industry were reinforced and well established consumption behaviors were made stronger. Then, shortly after the world reopened, US consumers faced the highest rate of food inflation since the early 1980s. And while it's moderated considerably now, a longer term consequence of food inflation has been playing out as US consumers are placing a greater emphasis on value when it comes to brands they're choosing at the grocery store. But don't mistake value seeking as only searching for the lowest priced products, which is likely the central reason why you've seen grocery retailers improve the quality and overall value proposition of their private label brands. Moreover, value seeking shopping behavior creates a smaller margin of error overall for CPG brands, which could be partly why the total number of new products launched has been decreasing with each year. And it's not only the total number of new CPG products, but the proportion of big I innovation compared to little I innovation. I've referenced this idea of the CPG industry innovation paradox several times previously, but let me break it down quickly again. Consumers continue to demand new CPG products. And to meet that continual consumer demand for newness, CPG brands have caused a proliferation of new products as barriers to entry have lowered significantly. Yet, only around one tenth of new CPG products launched annually survive their first few years in market. So, while new product innovation is highlighted as a universally important growth driver for CPG brands, it can also be a resource intensive process that results in a questionable return on investment. But what happens when CPG brands decide instead to play it extremely safe? A recent Mintel report showed that only a quarter of last year's CPG product launches in the US market were genuinely new products. Instead, new CPG products launched have mostly been considered renovations. So things like line extensions, reformulations, or relaunches. And this big I innovation drought reminds me about a similar trend happening in another form of cultural expression. Did you know that almost every one of the top 25 grossing box office movies last year were based on existing IP or part of a franchise? Many of the most popular stories are ones we've been telling ourselves forever, just updated for modern audiences with more familiar faces and places. But this little eye innovation focus within the US movie industry has also been lauded for improving capital efficiency, which brings my kind of brain full circle back to the CPG industry and its recent profitability renaissance. So maybe what consumers are demonstrating is that there's room for new, but priority is being placed on modern versions of proven CPG products, or as I'm about to detail, proven functional ingredients utilized within my deep domain expertise, which is the emerging and intersecting CPG categories of functional foods, functional beverages, and nutritional supplements. Is it just me, or have you noticed this rebirth of functional ingredients phenomenon happening? It seems more frequently, or maybe more noticeably, of late. Just as I've stated earlier, trends within all forms of cultural expression are cyclical, and that includes product development. And while new ideas or ingredients, formats, and other elements may come and go, some variables will perpetually stay and become foundational to the ways in which we consume. But if we're talking about functional ingredients, it requires a scientific flywheel that's still spinning quickly. And that's because while many functional ingredients were popularized within the shadowy niches of sports nutrition, an ever growing body of research with positive results has broadened use cases and expanded demographics, making them almost must have staples for everyone. This focus must be centered on the consumer and starts by looking at the evolving scientific flywheel of existing functional ingredients. Based on consumer behavior and lifestyle changes, what functional ingredients can address unmet consumer needs or desires? This questioning, thinking, and subsequent experimenting was what eventually led Vital Proteins to reframe collagen peptides into this multi-billion-dollar product subcategory, or what a multitude of supplement brands have been successfully doing with creatine, reframing it, broadening the formats, and finding new audiences beyond the gym. Similarly, but arguably earlier in the cycle, we can see broadened use cases and expanded demographics happening with the functional ingredient colostrum, as it's no longer just liquid gold for athletes and bodybuilders to increase performance. But thinking about a functional ingredient even earlier in the what is old is new again adoption or hype cycle that I believe could have massive upside would be the leucine metabolite HMB. And the almost 3 decade commercial evolution of HMB is arguably the exact representation of what I'm trying to explain with this rebirth of functional ingredients phenomenon. HMB was initially sold and marketed by sports nutrition brands to bodybuilders and strength athletes, but what challenged stronger adoption of HMB in the late 1990s and the early 2000s was the perfect storm of a small niche market and brands utilizing overhyped claims, maybe as a way of trying to justify much higher input costs at the time. Then, maybe right around 2010, the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company Abbott Labs started putting HMB into some of its nutritional shakes, like Ensure, that were marketed to older populations and recovering patients that needed muscle health support. But whether because the growing healthy longevity trend or age of Ozempic craze, mainstream society has a greater understanding around the importance of muscle health and strength. And if you're wondering, the scientific flywheel is still spinning quickly on HMB. In fact, a recent published study found that long term supplementation of my HMB, the branded ingredient from TSI Group, and vitamin D3 contributed to significant improvement in muscle function, even independent of exercise. And while I'm super bullish overall on this functional ingredient, especially because of potential tailwinds from GLP 1 second order effects ushering in a whole new era of CPG industry winners and losers, maybe like creatine, format will play a role in just how popular HMB becomes in the future. But unlike the creatine gamification effect, my assumption is that Abbott Labs was correct when utilizing HMB in a more convenient dosage format like ready to drink beverages. Yet, I'd like to also see unique functional food applications with HMB start emerging more often as well. But I just want to end with some quick final thoughts. For those that understand where we are right now within the marketplace cycle, nearly every CPG category is in the early innings of a remarkable transformation as consumers move closer towards this four-way intersection of taste, convenience, nutrition, and functionality. But being successful requires refocusing on consumers, learning about their unmet needs, and satisfying them through unique and authentic modern twists of products. But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.